Good evening and welcome to Mello TV. I'm your host, Nicole Hayles. Local government elections have been postponed and to be held no later than February 2023. This follows approval of the Representation of the People Postponement of Elections to Municipal Corporations and City Municipalities Act 2022 in the House of Representatives on January 25 of this year. Local Government Minister and Rural Development Minister Desmond McKenzie, who piloted the bill, said that given the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the fourth wave of COVID, the holdings of elections at this time would put the country at a greater public health risk. Pollster Bill Johnson conducted a poll asking persons who they would vote for if the election was held and their knowledge on their councillors. To help break down the findings tonight are renowned pollster Bill Johnson and political analyst and commentator Paul Bourne. Good evening, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Bill, let's start with you. Break down the numbers relating to the topic of how many people know who their councillors are.
Okay, well, only 1/3 of Jamaicans could identify who their local government councillor is. That's 33%. Of those who voted for the JLP, 45% could identify their local councillor. 45% of those who voted for the PNP could identify their local government councillor. And of those who didn't vote in the last election, only 23% could identify their local government councillor.
Paul, you just heard the numbers that we've opened with. 33% of persons can identify who their councillor is. Is it that the people don't care who represent them, or the councillors are not making enough effort to get to know who they represent?
That is a two-part question, so let's deal with them separately. One, people in Jamaica are just fed up with what is happening in terms of politics, in terms of leadership, and because of that state, it is actually expressed in terms of the numbers. Because you're saying that 1 in every 3 Jamaican knows who his or her councillor is, and that is a sign that is not only that the councillor is actually not representing himself effectively, but that people do not appreciate governance in terms of political governance in Jamaica anymore. So therefore, whoever is actually placed there, they'll just vote if they want to vote, and that's about it.
Okay, well, given the numbers for the political percentage, is it fair to say both political parties are guilty of neglecting who they represent?
The numbers are clear, and if we look at even numbers prior to what Bill is actually finding out in terms of local government elections over the years, it's a similar situation. So it means that people are just downright fed up with politics. Now, what we need to understand clearly is, why is it that the local government, which is at the local level, people are this frustrated? Because at the local level, there ought to be more interaction with the people versus at the higher level. So it's something which is fundamentally wrong in terms of how leadership is done in Jamaica, particularly in the political sphere. That should be addressed.
Bill, when the people were asked what they believe are the main responsibilities of councillors, what are those numbers showing?
Okay, well, first of all, only 50% of the people could think of what one of the responsibilities were of the local government councillors, which in itself speaks for the lack of knowledge that people have of the job. But of those who could mention, 17% said maintain or repair the roads. Another 17% said represent or help the people in the community. 6% said build or help the community. 5% said clean up the community. 4% provide community-based jobs. 4% provide jobs in general. 4% provide water. 3% repair the streetlights. 2% oversee the garbage collection, and 2% help the poor.
Paul, Bill just told us that only 50% were able to give a response to this question, and mention the things that they mentioned are rather interesting. What do you make of these responses?
When I look at those responses, I really had to laugh, because if it means that that's how Jamaicans actually see local governance, it means that we're in a clear situation of moral degradation. And I'm not even sure how to actually coin it, because it's a clear indication in terms of the failure of politics to deal with things. Because what we need to understand clearly is that local representation ought to be in the people's bosom, at the people's doorstep. And if it is that people do not know who their local representatives are, it's an indication that local leadership is actually lacking in Jamaica, and that this should not be, because many of the local individuals, when we're talking about local individuals in terms of local government leaders, are from the communities. So it is that people do not know who these guys are. And it is somewhat strange to sort of see Jamaicans do not know who they are, or only 1 in every 2 Jamaicans responding to this question. And we are hoping that leaders are listening to this, because remember, the local government election should have occurred. So if they are listening to this, what it means that they need to get out in the highways, in the communities, and let their representatives know who they are, and as a result of knowing who they are, show their vision and their policies as what it is that they want to do for the neighbors.
Paul, still with you, the ongoing cry of wanting better roads by Jamaicans, it's on the top of the list, repair of roads. This is the biggest issue, yet we have some major roadway issues in several communities. Is this a silent cry for what the people want, or a true response of what they truly believe is their responsibility?
It's both, because the issue relating to roads in terms of community roads is really a local government issue. So therefore, one can actually understand why it is that people are saying that road is a priority of theirs in terms of from their local representative, and that's understandable. But what it does mean is the matter of roads, the cry that people are actually using here from the road argument is to say, listen, their local representatives are not doing what they see that they ought to be doing. And one such thing is relating to roads. When you look at the people in their community as a critical part of what people are saying that should be happening, this should not be the case, because a local representative who lives in the area should be doing thus much. And if it is that people are saying that this is what they want their local government representative to be doing, I'm not sure what is really going on in the minds of people, or who their leaders are, or what is it that leaders are doing. But clearly something is just missed in terms of what is happening in Jamaica in terms of politics.
Bill, let's look at the people's response on the possibility of a local government election being held today. Who would they vote for? How did the people poll?
Okay, well, we asked people if the local government elections are being held on the day the interview was being conducted, who would they vote for? The JLP candidate, the PNP candidate, or would they probably not vote as things stood at that point? Now, I think it's important to compare the way they would vote today with how they were voting 18 months ago, when we asked them the same question, only it was for member of parliament. So 38% in July of 2020 said they'd vote for the JLP. 21% in February of this year said they'd vote for the JLP. So the JLP has lost 17 points. The PNP was 19% 18 months ago. It's now 17%. It's lost 2 points. Undecided was 20%. It's now 12%. Those who said they wouldn't vote was 22% 18 months ago. It's now up to 44%. And refused was 1% and 6%. Now, it's interesting. These numbers are almost the same as the numbers that we discussed on Monday when we asked people which of the two parties would do a better job of governing the country. At that point, as you may remember, the JLP lost considerable amount of support from 18 months ago to today. However, the PNP didn't pick up that support. The PNP actually lost a little support itself. We see the same thing holding true with these numbers. The JLP has lost 17 points, but none of it was picked up by the PNP. And at this point, all you can say about the PNP is that it's a non-entity. The JLP is in effect running against itself. Now, if the election had been held when we conducted the poll, the JLP would have gotten 56% of the vote, the PNP 44% of the vote, and we estimate that would have been resulted in 145 seats for the JLP and 83 seats for the PNP, because obviously there wouldn't have been any undecideds, and we take out those who wouldn't vote and the recusals. So things in the long run don't look good for the JLP. They're only ahead by 4 points, but if the election had been held in January, they would have won probably by 10 points or so.
Very telling numbers we just heard from Bill. Paul, let's compare the numbers of the 2020 to 2022. The JLP is losing momentum and the PNP gaining ground. Paul, what has happened to the JLP's popularity?
I want to actually address a matter that is not inside the argument of Bill. And the matter is related to when an election is called, there's an entire machinery that goes in effect in terms of both political parties. And that is not taken into consideration inside these numbers. But let's look then at the numbers in terms of what people are saying at the time of the research. Now, if you look at the numbers, it's clearly indicating that COVID-19, the crime situation, unemployment, all of that is significantly destroying the popularity of the JLP. But at the local level, this ought not to be the case, because remember, at the local level, it's not a national issue. We're looking at national governance, national issues. So it means that there is something which is fundamentally wrong in terms of how governance is actually happening in Jamaica. Because if at the local level, the issues are almost the same as at the national level, then it means that people do not see representation being effective at the local and the national level. Nevertheless, outside of that, the PNP needs to address some of the things that are actually happening to their popularity and by extension their leadership. The PNP's face in terms of, and I say the PNP face in terms of using its leader and what they are doing at the moment, clearly is not coming across to the Jamaican people. And they need to do something to promulgate themselves in the minds and hearts of Jamaicans. And if this, because we're looking at numbers, they're at the national, the local level here. And if these are the numbers, then people are saying to the People's National Party, you are not being effective, you're not playing your role, and we are not seeing you face to face in an environment that should not be the case. So the People's National Party need to address these issues before it actually gets into the 2023 election at local government level. Otherwise, they'll be in a serious position.
Paul, let's turn to the percentage of persons that did not vote. It has doubled for 2022. Is this a serious message being sent by the people?
The people of Jamaica have been sending a message to both political parties for a long, long time. And it's clearly that they have not recognized that their message has been sent to them. And if they continue like this, as I said before, some time ago, that what is going to happen is the only persons that are going to be voting, or those persons at the voting booth, will be the ministers and their entourage and nobody else. So what is going here is that the Jamaican people are saying, listen, we are just fed up with what you are doing. You are not addressing the issues that we want to address. And what is ironic here is that local governance ought to be emerging from the belly of the people. And if at the local level, people are distraught and disappointed, then maybe we should actually postpone local government elections indefinitely and address some of the issues that people are actually saying at the national level.
Okay, Paul, based on the numbers that Bill gave us earlier, and given the numbers, the JLP would have won 145 seats and the PNP 83 seats. How can the JLP maintain this lead and gain even more leading up to the actual local government election that is due next year, 2023?
What is a plus for the JLP, though, is a matter relating to the end of COVID, because if COVID is to end, a number of things are going to change. And by extension, things will actually go in the favor of the JLP within that context. Because what we need to take into consideration now is the matter relating to crime is something that the JLP is not going to fix in the short term or the medium term. So that's going to be a problem that they're going to have to address at some point in time. But the issues that emerged as a result of COVID in terms of the lockdown, in terms of unemployment, in terms of low income, all of that will actually be addressed immediately after COVID is addressed. So the numbers will actually spike up for the Jamaican Labour Party. So that is good in terms of what is happening for them. Now, a win, nevertheless, is a win. But the JLP need to understand clearly that they have to get the country on track as quickly as is possible if they really need to actually be victorious in the local government election come 2023 or in 2022.
Okay, the same for the PNP, Paul. How can they regain the support of the people of Jamaica to support them to take control of local government, and what has caused them to continue to lose the confidence of the Jamaican people even at the local government election level?
The People's National Party's face is creating a problem for it. Now, all that controversy in terms of leadership of the People's National Party, in my mind, in terms of what is happening in terms of the votes, has not been settled. So people are still dissatisfied with who the leader is, and there clearly some rift in terms of whether it should have been Mark or whether it should have been X or whether it should have been Y. Clearly that is not settled, and some of the bitterness that is occurring from that is actually shown inside the numbers, because we need to understand clearly that a number of People's National Party voters did not vote and clearly are not voting. So the PNP has to address that substantive issue in terms of the leadership of the party, and address some of the dissatisfaction that occur as a result of the election from that. Now, outside of that, the PNP also need to address some other things. What exactly is the policy that the PNP is putting forward? That need to be promulgated and promulgated quickly. Outside of the matter relating to the face of the party leader promulgating policy, if it is that the People's National Party need to win in an atmosphere where they are in opposition or the opposition side of the scenario, what they have to do is to show the people of Jamaica that they are a good alternative. So they need to get their act together and show the Jamaican people that they are good, if not the best alternative, and that has to be addressed and done so quickly.
Before we go, Paul, tell us, do both parties need to revise the slate of candidates that they put forward at the local level? And what would be your advice to the parties at this time?
I will begin with people need governance, people need leadership. People want to see themselves as being prosperous and seeing their leader as someone that can motivate, propel them to greatness. So I'm saying to the People's National Party and Jamaica Labour Party, look at yourself in terms of the leadership that you're offering to the people. And if it is that your councillors are not offering hope, prosperity, success, and development to its core base, and by extension the constituents, then take those leaders out of the race and replace them with new leaders. Now, during this time, I'm hoping that the People's National Party and the Jamaica Labour Party understand that this time should be a situation where they begin to canvass. And when I say canvass here is to do a research in terms of who the people are in the various communities, what are some of their challenges, what are some of their needs, and put in place programs and policies to address those needs. Because if that does not occur, what is going to happen is people will, how should I say that? People will even begin not to even think of politics anymore and maybe all stay home. And that will be a travesty for Jamaica in terms of a local government minister being actually won by 2 or 3 votes because only 2 or 3 persons actually came out to vote.
Bill, tomorrow, Friday 25, is the final day of the poll. What can we expect?
Okay, well, it's long been an axiom in Jamaican politics that Jamaica is PNP country. Tomorrow night, we're going to explore over whether or not Jamaica still remains PNP country. And I think people will find it very, very interesting.
Indeed. There you have it. Join us tomorrow and every weekday up until tomorrow, Friday, February 25, to get the answers to many more important questions during the Mello TV Bill Johnson poll, and also listen to Mello FM and Rhythm FM for the newscasts for the recap. I want to thank this evening's guests, pollster Bill Johnson and political analyst and commentator Paul Bourne. I'm Nicole Hayles on behalf of the entire production team. Thanks for watching.